when you hear the sound of the bell, you know you in the championship rounds with the one and only King Amin of Essex. And we circling back, finishing how we started with my brethren, my brother, my comrade. I got my man Jay in the house. I'm on the other side. And we here to talk a little bit about boxing. He's been away for a while, so I want y'all to welcome him back, shout him out in the comments. Also check out his thing going on. I'm gonna give him a moment to self-promote, and then we're gonna get right to it. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, man, glad to be back linking with my man. You can find me at Psy.D 973, or on my podcast, the Black Psychologist Podcast, where, we talk about mental health, news, and everything in between. And again, but just, happy to be back, connecting with my bro. We're going to talk some sports and, entertainment today, bro.
Hey, so speaking of sports and entertainment, we're going to jump right to it. We old enough to remember the Tyson era. You know what I'm saying? I'll stop wearing socks because of Joker. You know what I mean? So, you know what I'm saying? He's got a new series out on Hulu. He's saying it's unauthorized. He don't agree with the portrayal or depiction of him. You aware of that? Speak on that if you can a little bit.
I mean, I saw this article earlier in the week. Again, like an 8-episode joint getting ready to come out on Hulu. Tyson ain't happy, man. He's been all week kind of on a campaign, discouraging people from watching it. He kind of made a point to kind of call him out and say that they tried to get Joe Rogan to promote it, I guess, behind his back. We all know about his platform and the reach of that. And I guess Joe Rogan declined, but he's not happy. This isn't really uncommon. We've seen people disagree with how their stories have been told. I guess one of the biggest examples now is like the Lakers series that's out. Jerry West was kind of the biggest, let's say,
opponent
detractor.
Of it. Sure.
Right. And Magic, I think, had some things to say, or he was kind of distanced himself from it. Listen, people are very protective over their legacy, man. So it's interesting. But again, when I was looking at the backstory, they acknowledged it, they labeled it as unauthorized. And they were kind of saying, we want to delve into some of the issues around Mike Tyson so you can kind of draw your own conclusion. So,
yeah, and I
don't know, man, it's messy though,
Yeah, I understand that sometimes in a situation where, I think it's similar what's going on with Rocky, and Sylvester Stallone with that franchise. He's saying to a point, even if you have the legal grounds and the creative license, you don't have the creative spirit to speak on it and to depict it. And so what we're asking is a very dishonest industry to be honest about something. And some people would even say maybe because he had control of, but Mike, this ain't no different from the Mike Tyson mysteries. We had the pigeon in the minivan on Adult Swim. You know what I'm saying? I understand at that time that might have been a maneuver. You know what I mean? He sold some of his likenesses or some of his rights so he can get some bread, get the tax man off his back. And maybe this is one of those residual deals where somebody owns a piece of it. So, now without speculating, I don't think that it's right. But as you said, this is the business. Hulu, they're trying to sell subscriptions and they're going to use, I started off with saying we're old enough to remember that era. He's been a brand, an icon, and an entity of himself for over almost 30 years now. So what could he expect, right?
I mean, yeah, what could he expect? And then, of course, listen, when they were talking to the Hulu executives, they kind of couched it by saying, listen, we want people to walk away and make up their own mind, right? We're telling it from a different perspective. So to me, that means they're going to be playing up the more salacious angles of his life, right? I wouldn't be surprised if the focus isn't mainly on boxing, if it's more on substance use and rape charges and biting Evander Holyfield and all kinds of stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's probably why at this point in his career, rightfully so, right? Because as a businessman, he's proved himself, right? In terms of, I guess, his temperament and demeanor, has changed as he's gotten a little older. Besides the incident on the plane where he was clearly being provoked. Listen, he's cleaned up his image as much as you can, what he doesn't owe any of us anything, but when you talk about somebody developing into, you know, like a man and like, you know, having a different portion of his life kind of being showcased, he's probably going to be more protective over somebody else telling a story about, especially the early periods. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And the stuff that public opinion, you know, and the more salacious things, you know, that can kind of resurface, you know, and be in his face again, right? Because these, you know, some of these things that, you know, were going on around him back in the day, you know, we didn't have a Me Too movement now, you know, then we didn't. So who knows, you know, what he's thinking in terms of what the worst part of it could be. So I understand his concern, but I think, and obviously he's upset about it. I don't know, maybe he don't want Trevante Rhodes playing him, you know, in it either. You know, I don't know, who knows, you know. But you know, I think he has, you know, a right to be upset, but I think he should just kind of bask in the success he has now and move forward, because they're in his review, you know. And listen, it's Hulu, so it's not like it's going on a channel or a platform that has any type of like
credibility, if you will,
when it comes to boxing, right? No real sports fans kind of care about, you know, the Lakers series. What is it, on HBO or something? You know, it's a movie and it's scripted. So I think people are going to kind of see it for that. And I mean, legacy wasn't never a question here, but I think he probably gave it more promotion than it initially had, if it had any buzz at all. You know what I mean?
Well, speaking of cinematic movies and experiences, we want to talk about Blair Cobb. You know, in the beginning of this season, when we first started off, we talked about Blair Cobb. He was, you know, it was leading up to a fight. It was a big article. I forgot what magazine it was. It was released, and they talked about him being like, you know, experiencing a lot of early trials and tribulations around his upbringing, his dad, drug game, you know, that kind of story. And here he was just last week. And I had some mixed feelings about it, because the brother going to come out there with the Yardman trunks on and got, you know, punched up pretty good. I'm talking about one Blair Cobb. Had an amazing victory over Maurice Hooker. And, you know, this is the kind of stories that we look for, right? I mentioned Rocky. You know, we're talking about Mike Tyson, names and legacies and events throughout the life of a boxer that happen that kind of, you know, have this cinematic appeal. So first of all, you know, what do you think about a guy like, you know, Blair Cobb getting that sort of attention, the win in life, but perhaps, you know, his likeness and his experiences lending itself to some sort of cinematic venture in the future?
Well, I mean, listen, it's the perfect story, right? Because it's a Philly story, right? Kind of, you know, having that rough upbringing, overcoming the odds. I think somebody with more of a trajectory. Well, listen, his story isn't finished being written, right? But and I'm not comparing him in skills or nothing, but just in terms of coming from that background, those cities, when you look at like Shakur Stevenson, like I could see that being on the big screen someday, you know what I mean? But just kind of keeping it where we're at. Again, perfect story coming out of Philly, overcoming the odds. We talked about it on your show. You know, listen, and coming out with a dominant performance, right? Multiple knockdowns, you know, first and second round. And then, you know, what people kind of come to see, right? A battle. And you know, kind of getting that definitive victory. So, you know, of course, you know, that's obviously, you know, that's fuel for the fire, that, you know, the perfect story, perfect setup. But just, you know, of course, I want to know your opinion in terms of like what you were most impressed by, and what you think is next for the kid.
Well, the funny thing about it is that skill-wise, Blair Cobb is still a very unorthodox style fighter, but his movement, you know, and is setting up, you know, his style of punches, left himself pretty vulnerable to a fighter that would try to work him with a jab. But I think he's got, you know, yeah, he can punch and he can box. He can get it done. What I think is interesting about now the potential fights for him based on his outside of the ring presence and what he's done in the ring, you might want to see him against a Keith Thurman.
Okay.
Because Keith Thurman, I'm always going to take the opportunity respectfully to say Keith Thurman is always going to be considered one of the greats at what he's done for the welterweight division. But if he don't get out the way, he got to be labeled as a gatekeeper. So fine, Conor Ben done moved on to Eubank Jr. I'm gonna talk about that sometime next week, this week, whenever. I mean, there's still so many fights at 147, and he fought Mario Barrios. This will be a great opportunity to fight a guy like Blair Cobb. If you say you still want to get your wings back up under you from being out of the ring so long, getting a feel around fight with Barrios, okay, Blair Cobb is a great fight at 147. Now, continue talking about Blair Cobb. The one thing about him and a lot of the differentiation from him and a lot of fighters like Mike Tyson, he has the personality.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you.
And it's not offensive, and he doesn't have any outside of the ring issues, if you will. So
just kind of going along the lines of that, how well does he kind of do, promoting himself, social media presence, all of that stuff?
He's the goods. Win or lose, he's the goods. Get on social media. I like to thank all my fans for supporting me. God's warrior, boom, 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 boom. You can't go against him. You can't go against him.
Right.
Yeah,
he's setting himself up to be the people's champ.
Definitely. And against a guy like Keith Thurman, they both can talk. And obviously Thurman, people want to say he lost a step. I can't say that he has, but I'd like to see, if there's any slippage, and I want to see him against a legit 147 pounder. So, Virgil Ortiz, that may not be possible, but definitely Blair Cobb. Let's make it happen, man. So,
and just, in terms of, Mighty Mo Hooker, what did you think of his performance? What do you think is next for him?
Listen, I'm respectful to all fighters who lace him up and get in the ring. And I'm a brethren. I don't know if he was, what I'm saying, he had on the shorts. I give him that. I don't know if he just did it because of independence and Earl is his man, or he really got that maroon in his veins. I don't know. I never seen his back before. No blood clot, But I will say this. If I'm just talking about on a boxing tip, he really hasn't done too much at 147. What he did at 140 was respectable. So at 147, I don't see him doing much of anything. You know what I mean? So, now, matter of fact, hold up, I'm wrong. He came in there on Bud Crawford. So I was trying to give him the association off of Spence, but I hope he's Jamaican, because other than that, he was just doing it for the weekend. I
don't know, man. Listen, you gotta keep it real, bro.
Well, speaking of doing it for the weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend, he's in the return bout. Somebody that has, maybe a story to tell. Maybe he won't get too deep in it, the personal part, but inside the ring, the story's been a lot of underachieving. I'm talking about Adrian Broner. Had a pretty good interview on Cigar Talk, and he talked about the possibility of the circumstances for which, and maybe he's operating off too much principle and not boxing sense. Because he's saying, how Floyd should have taken an opportunity or given him an opportunity for them to fight, which would have secured his financial future. And, we've heard these conversations before with people that have a lot less money than Floyd, What you think, man?
I think he sounded crazy, man. I mean, respectfully, all that, I'm going to stop my, Floyd called me, I would stop my fight. I mean, we all know that's about a check. But listen, he sounded like a guy that, needs Floyd, for gas, right? And the thing is, if he's trying to get Floyd's attention, I think that's the wrong way to do it, right? Because right now, Floyd obviously isn't fighting for money. The exhibitions are a lot of money, so I'm not saying he doesn't care about it, but he doesn't appear to be fighting to pay his bills. He can pick his opponents. So that's something that they really homies and they got an on and off relationship. He should have politicked that outside of the public eye, because the way Floyd Mayweather's personality is, he might have just guaranteed that it would never happen by opening his mouth. You know what I mean? And that's how I feel about it. And just from his tone, it seemed like he could talk about it's for the people and this and that. I guarantee you, if you used to put out a poll, who the people want to see Floyd against the most, Adrian Broner, if he's in the poll, he would not be number one. You know what I mean? This would be something that would totally benefit Broner. financially, and perhaps if he puts on a good showing, you know, could light, you know, another match under his career in terms of the buzz. Of course, you would know way better than me, so pull me back if I'm going too far. But again, it just seems like a guy that he's getting more promotion off talking about this prospective fight that will probably never happen than for the fight that he has coming up, right? So it just seems like a money grab. And to be honest with you, he should have really directed that at Jake Paul or Logan Paul, right? Because if he would have did that, they might have gotten the ring with him. You know what I mean?
Well, look, I think one of the problems that Broner had, he didn't make Floyd believe in him as a fighter first.
Okay.
So he just sound very entitled. I mean, he didn't, you know, Broner, nobody, you know, has to apologize for talking about the lack of maximizing of potential that Broner's had. Now, again, things are very touchy nowadays when we talk about what's going on and mental health and
Right.
wellness. So I'm not trying to throw him under the bus, but I think sometimes, you know, when you offer that braggadocio and you speaking so, you know, loud, you know, but your actions is not, people have the right, or at least to call you out. It's an observation when you put yourself in front of the public eye. So, you know, with that being said, I think Broner need to focus on Omar Figueroa.
Right.
This could be an opportunity for him to make, you know, the fans believe in him first. And outside of that, he don't need to be worried about nothing else unless he gonna, you know what I'm saying? Like, why is he not calling out Danny Garcia? Yo, I should have fought Danny Garcia. And I say that not because Danny's vulnerable, because, you know, a resurgence. Danny came back on the honor of whatever circumstance he was in. He literally and figuratively fought his way back into the public eye, fought his way back into whatever situation and got the fans behind him and probably, you know, galvanized his own emotional stability. So Broner, I wish him luck, but, you know, the way he approaches things, you know, the likelihood of success, he minimizes with some of them bullshit antics, man. But salute to him.
And I mean, listen, he need to worry about his opponent, because I don't know if that was this week or yesterday, but his opponent's taking shots at him and his mental health. I mean, he tried to clean it up later. But, you know, he needs to focus on the man that's in front of him, right? Because, again, you go out there and you don't, and there's not a good showing, then people are going to be saying, like, why would you even open your mouth about even an exhibition with Floyd, right? So it kind of seemed, that's why I said if he was really trying to make it happen, you went about it the wrong way. Go out there, you know what I mean? Show everybody what you got, you know, put the man out, you know what I'm saying? And say, all right, now me and Floyd should get in there and entertain, right? But talking that way, you know, it's like, is you know, it just, again, it's not the way to get Mayweather's attention. Mayweather probably going to ignore him, and that's kind of the way to guarantee it never happens, if you ask me.
Well, we're going to see. And that fight is 2 weeks away, man. But just talking about the action that's coming up this weekend, some might consider a little light weekend. But we got the return of Teofimo Lopez, man. This time, he's not at 135. He's not in that heavy division, you know, with Ryan Garcia and Tank and Devin. He done moved up. He's back at 140. I know you followed Teofimo off the, you know, the heels of the Lomachenko fight. What do you think about, you know, this whole return and what's up for him?
I mean, listen, I'm interested in the return. You know, I'm gonna be very honest. I'm glad it's on ESPN, not on pay-per-view. I'm glad I'm having an opportunity to see it. You know, I have a feeling I don't want to say nothing controversial, but I don't know much about Campbell, but I have a feeling he's gonna be tough, if not anything else. You know what I mean? Just kind of from what, you know, he kind of come from. It's a comeback fight, you know what I mean? So, you know, I don't know what I'm gonna see, you know, but, you know, hoping that he puts on a good showing. You know, I kind of a little bit, I'm not saying surprised, but I guess his quotes and the comments kind of took me a little bit by surprise when, you know, when he was saying, you know, I'm the greatest of my time. You know, context, I guess, matters a little bit, because when I looked a little deeper, he was kind of talking about making it through the Kambosos fight, I guess, with the hand injury, and you know, they was talking about he had air in his, he was fighting with air in his chest.
Yeah.
I wanted you to kind of enlighten me a little bit more about that, but I think it was a little tongue in cheek because he did kind of say, you know, some people are going to think I'm crazy by saying it, right? So maybe it's just him having confidence in himself. And listen, he's coming. It's a comeback fight. So again, you know, we've seen him, you know, fight at a high level. So it's not like he's talking crazy in the sense of something he's not done before. He's done things that people haven't thought he could ever do before, right?
There you go.
So I would never, you know, I would never put him and his team, you know, like count him out. But I you know, I kind of just chalk it up to his boxing, man. So bravado and just, you know, pumping yourself up. But it's a comeback fight, man. So anything could happen, you know?
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing, man. You know, some people want to take away from Tio because of, again, that braggadocio, but he tends to back it up in the ring to the best of his ability. As far as the Kambosos fight and that whole lung condition, according to reports, they said it was some sort of clotting or a leakage where it built up a air valve or the air pressure pocket that if he breathed the wrong way, something could have happened. It could have caused like a rupture or something. So it was a legit medical condition. How much of that was known leading up to the fight? Nobody knows. At least I don't know specifically, but yeah, you got to give him credit for beating Loma. You cannot take that away from him.
Right.
And then on top of that, if you say it was the hand and he said, yo, I can't breathe. I thought it was just my asthma. You know, I have asthma. Just thought it was chest tightness. Again, hats off to him. He could have, left it all out there in the ring. So only thing he can do is either prove us right or prove us wrong. Those that think that, we agree this is a comeback fight, give him some room to breathe. Let's see what he does. I'm not down on the kid. At 140, there's some work out there. I don't know if Top Rank got all the work at 140 because they got Jose Ramirez. I think Catterall and Taylor are tied up, but Taylor ain't trying to hang around at 140. So, kind of the move at 140 to stay at Top Rank. The Ramirez fight. Who else is there? I think Zepeda is at 140. Yeah, it ain't that bad. It ain't that bad. And I'm excited to see it, Tio's a good.
So what you think about Campa? Like what kind of challenges might he present?
Man, Campa's got to be the best Campa he can be for him to do anything opposite of what I expect to happen.
Okay. So you expecting him to go down?
I'm expecting Tio to build a lot of confidence off this fight.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But some people will say that Tio is a little, again, I don't want to use the word, too, like arrogant, overconfident. I don't think he can overlook an opponent like Campa. You know what I'm saying? I'm being real.
Right.
But somehow if that happens, like that would really say a lot. But Tio's on a high level, man. And people, they like to jump to conclusions, man. Again, we freak out when a guy lost to a guy that was already at a high level. You know what I'm saying? So we got to give him his just due, man. Ain't nothing wrong with what he got going on.
All right. Well, I mean, like I said, man, to be honest with you, I'm just happy that I'm be able to actually see this fight, ESPN. So, it'll be, something I'm definitely tuning into. Hopefully we'll see some action, man,
Hey, man, listen, and just real quick before we get up out of here, I want to play a little quick draw with you, man. Quick game of who you got.
All right, I'll do my best, yeah.
All right, Spence or Crawford?
Oh, I got to take Crawford, man, just from what I've seen. And, admittedly, I obviously I haven't seen as much of, Earl Spence, but, I just got to take Crawford for what I've seen, in the pedigree. What about, who would you take?
I mean, I got Crawford, you know what I'm saying, till proven wrong. You know what I'm saying? I'm going against a lot of things, but I can't go against my good senses on this one.
Yeah, that's how I feel, man. And, listen, I kind of take my direction with certain things from, people that know more than me. So what my eyes tell me and what the experts tell me, I'm going Crawford.
I got another one for you. This is a throwback one. Muhammad Ali or Tyson Fury?
Oh, Muhammad Ali.
Okay.
I wouldn't listen. I would have to see Tyson Fury would have to beat his ass in front of my face for me to take Tyson Fury over Muhammad Ali. And I'm not, listen, I know what Tyson Fury is. You understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
From talking to you, from talking to people, I know what he is. I know how special he is. You know what I mean? I don't know if Tyson Fury would take Tyson Fury against Muhammad Ali. As confident in himself as he is, I don't know. Not with a spoonful of truth serum. Not on Muhammad Ali's best day. Hell no.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw one more out there. This one, for some people, you know, it might be easy, it might be hard to pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sugar Ray Leonard.
Okay.
Right? And Earl Spence.
See, this is the thing. I'm gonna take Sugar Ray, but it might be a little bit of nostalgia there, man. You know what I mean? Like a lot of these fighters that we kind of grew up, you know, watching and admiring, and just the way they fought and the way they won, you know, and the kind of champions they was, like, it just doesn't necessarily stack up to what I see now, you know, and it might just be nostalgia. Again, you got the professional eye, but nah, I'll take Sugar Ray.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna tell you something, yo. I hate to break it to you. Spence might hurt him.
All right, I'll give it to you. I mean, listen, I, you know, just enlighten me as to why. You know, again, you know, I'm looking, you know, with a amateur eye here, so you know.
One of the things that Ray Leonard, he wasn't like, he could make welterweight, but he wasn't that big. You know what I'm saying? Naturally, and his speed was his killer, and he could hit. But somebody like Spence is a big dude that be like walking around maybe 170 something, that come down to 147, and he's a southpaw and he's very precise. And I think no matter the speed with Leonard, he would cut the ring off and just try to, you know, hurt him to the body before he even thought about landing up top. And then when Leonard, you know, maybe got tired of trying to run from him, you know, because you're running and getting hit to the body or trying not to get hit to the body, so you're running more. And Spence will begin to cut the ring off a little bit more once Leonard slows down and begin to hurt him with some punches. And then, you know, if Leonard makes it to the final bell, he would be battered, you know? Yeah, but it would be a good fight to watch, because I think, you know, the one thing Leonard would have to do, he would have to like draw from, like, he would have to put, you know, Thor's hammer in his fist to draw some sort of power to keep Spence honest enough to not be cutting the ring off him and flooding the basement. So, but it would be intriguing to watch. Definitely intriguing to watch. And I just brought that up because when I pick somebody like Crawford over Spence, it's splitting hairs. And I don't want anybody to think that I don't know what the fuck Spence can do.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I just don't see. You know what I'm saying?
Well, listen, man, you know, I defer to you even when I'm sitting next to you watching a fight, man. That, you know, our eyes are gonna see things differently because, you know, I got an amateur eye and you got an expert one. So, you know, that's why we tune in, you know, to get that knowledge. So, you know.
Well, iron sharpen iron, and my brother, you know, you've been keeping me very, very sharp, and definitely it's good to have you back on the platform. I want you to go ahead and plug that Black Psychologist part, because again, we started talking about boxing, but you see how that mental health piece always weighs in, because we're only, you know, pieces to create a whole, whether it's, you know, a whole of ourselves or a whole as a, you know, a society, a whole as a unit, whatever. So plug that, man.
Well, listen, man, I appreciate anytime, you know, you'll have me on, you know, anytime, you know, I could, you know, come, you know, support what you got going on, you know, I'm happy to do it. But again, you know, tune in to the Black Psychologist podcast on YouTube. Myself, Dr. Coleman, and Dr. Osborne, you know, my bro, Dr. Kyle, you know, we do our show every week. So you can find us on YouTube. We talk about mental health news, you know, and everything in between. So appreciate it. And make sure you know, check out my boy on TPV. And of course here, you know what I mean, on Championship Rounds.
Yo, man, you know what it is. King Amin of Essex, Championship Rounds. We out of here, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, bro, 100, man.
All right.